Marcus Chen wiped the grease from his hands with a dirty rag as he heard the familiar sound of an engine struggling to maintain power. Living on the outer rim of human space meant he saw all kinds of ships come through his repair station, but this sound was different. The harmonics were all wrong for any human-built vessel he knew. The small asteroid station where Marcus had set up shop wasn't much to look at from the outside. Just another rock with some basic life support systems and a modest docking bay carved into its surface. But, inside, Marcus had built something special. His workshop contained tools and diagnostic equipment that could handle repairs on almost anything that flew, from ancient Earth freighters to the newest military corvettes. When the ship finally limped into his docking bay, Marcus had to admit he was impressed. The vessel was unlike anything he had ever seen before. It was sleek and organic-looking, with curves that seemed to flow like water frozen in time. The hull material appeared to be some kind of living metal that shifted slightly in the light. Strange symbols glowed along the ship's surface in patterns that hurt his eyes if he looked at them too long. The ship's landing was rough, with sparks flying from what he assumed were landing thrusters. Whatever was wrong with this thing, it was serious. Marcus had been working on ships since he was 12 years old, learning from his father who had learned from his grandfather. 3 generations of Chens had kept ships flying in this sector of space, and Marcus took pride in being able to fix anything that crossed his bay. As the ship's engines finally went silent, Marcus noticed that the air around the vessel seemed to shimmer slightly, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. He grabbed his universal translator device and his diagnostic scanner before approaching the ship. Living on the rim meant dealing with all kinds of aliens, though most preferred to deal with the larger corporate repair facilities closer to the core worlds. A section of the ship's hull suddenly became transparent, and Marcus got his first look at the pilot. She was definitely female, though clearly not human. Her skin had a slight blue-green tint, and her hair was a silver color that seemed to move on its own even though there was no wind. She was tall and elegant, with features that were somehow both alien and beautiful at the same time. What caught Marcus's attention immediately was the look of frustration and worry on her face. He had seen that expression on thousands of pilots over the years. It was the universal look of someone whose ship was broken and who desperately needed help. The alien woman stepped out of her ship with graceful movements that reminded Marcus of a dancer. She was wearing what appeared to be a form-fitting suit made of the same material as her ship's hull. When she spoke, her voice had a musical quality that made his translator work overtime. "Greetings, repair technician. I am Commander Zara of the Altarian fleet. My vessel has suffered critical system failures, and I require immediate assistance." Her words came through the translator with a formal tone, but Marcus could hear the underlying desperation. Marcus nodded and gestured toward his workshop. "I'm Marcus Chen, and this is my shop. Let me take a look at what we're dealing with here." He activated his scanner and began walking around her ship, taking readings and making notes on his datapad. The scanner results were unlike anything he had ever seen. The ship's energy readings were off the charts, but in patterns that didn't match any known technology. The power source seemed to be some kind of contained star, generating energy levels that should have vaporized anything within 100 meters. Yet somehow, this ship managed to contain and control that power. "Your vessel is definitely unique," Marcus said, looking up from his scanner. "I'm not familiar with Altarian technology, but I'm willing to take a look. What kind of problems are you experiencing?" Zara's expression brightened slightly. "The quantum phase regulators have become misaligned, causing cascade failures throughout the propulsion matrix. Additionally, the bioneural interface has developed what you might call a personality disorder." Marcus blinked a few times as his translator struggled with some of the technical terms. "Okay, let me see if I understand this correctly. Your ship's computer is having some kind of breakdown, and that's affecting your ability to fly?" "That is a simplified but accurate assessment," Zara replied with what might have been amusement. Over the next several hours, Marcus dove into the challenge of understanding Altarian technology. It was like trying to learn a completely new language while also figuring out how to speak it fluently. The ship's systems were based on principles that human science was only beginning to theorize about. What fascinated Marcus most was how the ship seemed to be alive in some ways. The bioneural interface wasn't just a computer, it was more like an artificial brain that had been grown rather than built. And, right now, that brain was very upset about something. "Your ship is in pain," Marcus told Zara after spending hours studying the readings. "I know that sounds crazy, but These patterns look like what I'd expect to see from a living creature that's been injured.
Zara's eyes widened in surprise. You can interpret binaural distress patterns? That is unexpected.
Most species cannot even detect them, let alone understand their meaning. I don't know about detecting them, Marcus replied, but I've worked on enough ships to recognize when something is wrong. And this ship is definitely trying to tell us something. As if responding to their conversation, the ship's hull began to pulse with soft lights in a rhythm that reminded Marcus of a heartbeat. Zara placed her hand on the ship's surface and closed her eyes for a moment. She says the quantum regulators were damaged when we encountered a spatial anomaly 3 days ago. The pain from the misalignment is preventing her from properly managing the other systems.
Marcus nodded thoughtfully.
So we need to fix the regulators first, then help her heal from the trauma. I've never worked on living technology before, but the principles should be similar to any other repair job. You speak of my ship as if she were truly alive, Zara observed. Most other species see Altarian vessels as mere machines. Maybe that's why they can't fix them, Marcus replied with a shrug.
My grandfather always told me that every ship has a personality.
Some are stubborn, some are eager to please, and some are just plain ornery. But if you listen to them and treat them with respect, they'll usually tell you what's wrong.
Zara stared at Marcus for a long moment, as if seeing him in a new light. Your grandfather was very wise.
Few beings understand the true nature of the partnership between pilot and vessel. Marcus began gathering the tools he thought he might need.
The quantum regulators would require some creative thinking since he didn't have replacement parts for Altarian technology.
But he had learned over the years that most problems could be solved with the right combination of ingenuity and determination. I'm going to need to access your ship's internal systems, Marcus told Zara.
Will she let me inside?
Zara spoke to the ship in her musical language, and the hull became transparent in several places, revealing the internal structure. The ship's interior was even more beautiful than the outside, with flowing organic curves and surfaces that seemed to glow with their own inner light. As Marcus stepped inside, he could feel the ship's presence in a way that was difficult to describe. It was like walking into someone's home and immediately sensing their personality from the way things were arranged. This ship felt ancient and wise, but also hurt and confused. The quantum regulators were located in what appeared to be the ship's heart, a chamber where energy flowed through crystalline structures in patterns that looked almost like blood vessels. Several of the crystals were cracked and misaligned, disrupting the flow and causing the cascade failures Zara had mentioned. I can see the problem, Marcus said, but I'm going to need to improvise a solution. I don't have quantum regulators in stock, but I might be able to create a temporary fix using some human technology. Marcus spent the next few hours carefully studying the damaged components and running calculations on his datapad. The quantum regulators worked on principles that human science barely understood, but Marcus had always been good at seeing patterns and connections that others missed. The solution he came up with was unconventional, to say the least. By combining several high-end human gravitational field generators with some creative programming, he thought he could create a device that would mimic the function of the damaged regulators long enough for the ship to heal itself. This is either going to work perfectly or destroy everything within a light-year radius, Marcus muttered as he began connecting the improvised replacement to the ship's systems.
Zara watched nervously as Marcus worked. Are you certain this will be safe?
The energies involved are quite dangerous. Nothing in life is certain, Marcus replied, making the final connection. But I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've never blown up a station yet. As soon as the device came online, Marcus could feel the change in the ship's demeanor. The painful resonance that had been building in the quantum matrix began to smooth out, and the ship's binaural interface started showing more stable patterns. The lights throughout the ship began to pulse in what could only be described as a sigh of relief. Zara placed her hand on the nearest wall and smiled for the first time since arriving at the station.
She says the pain is much better, Zara told Marcus.
Your solution is crude but effective. She is grateful. Marcus felt a warm sensation wash over him, and he realized the ship was somehow communicating directly with him. It was a feeling of appreciation and respect that was unlike anything he had ever experienced.
Well, I'll be damned, Marcus said softly. She really is alive, isn't she?
More alive than many beings I have encountered, Zara replied. And she has taken quite a liking to you, Marcus Chen. That is unusual. Over the next several hours, Marcus continued working on the ship's various systems, fine-tuning his improvised repairs and helping the bioneural interface recover from its trauma. What amazed him was how quickly he seemed to understand the ship's needs, as if she were teaching him her language as they worked together. Zara proved to be an excellent assistant, translating between human and Altarian technology concepts when Marcus got stuck. She seemed impressed by his ability to adapt human engineering principles to work with her ship's exotic systems. "Your species has a remarkable talent for improvisation," Zara observed as Marcus completed another repair. "Most civilizations become so focused on their own technological paradigms that they cannot adapt to new situations." "Maybe that's because we're still young as a spacefaring species," Marcus replied. "We haven't had time to get set in our ways yet." As the ship's systems came back online one by one, Marcus began to realize just how advanced Altarian technology really was. The vessel could manipulate spacetime itself, bend gravity to its will, and process information at speeds that made human computers look like pocket calculators. Yet despite all this technological sophistication, the ship's creators had somehow managed to preserve the essence of life within their creation. It was a feat of engineering that spoke to a level of understanding about the universe that humanity was nowhere near achieving. "How long has your people been building ships like this?" Marcus asked as he put the finishing touches on the last repair. "The art of bioneural ship construction has been practiced on Altair Prime for over 50,000 of your years," Zara replied. "Each vessel is unique, grown rather than built, and develops its own personality over time." Marcus whistled softly. 50,000 years. That's longer than human civilization has existed. Yet in that time, no member of another species has ever successfully repaired an Altarian vessel, Zara said quietly. "Until today." As if to confirm Zara's words, the ship's engines came to life with a harmonious hum that seemed to sing of joy and health. All the diagnostic readings showed green, and the bioneural interface displayed patterns that Marcus had learned to recognize as contentment. Marcus stepped back and admired his work. The improvised repairs weren't pretty by Altarian standards, but they worked. More importantly, the ship seemed genuinely happy with the results. "I think that should do it," Marcus said, wiping his hands on his rag again. "She's ready to fly whenever you are." Zara walked over to Marcus and took his hands in hers. Her touch was warm and sent a strange tingling sensation up his arms. When she spoke, her voice was filled with emotion that needed no translation. "Marcus-chan, you have given me back my life, and my ship her joy. This is a debt that cannot easily be repaid." Marcus felt uncomfortable with Zara's formal gratitude. "Look, you don't owe me anything. I'm a mechanic, and you needed repairs. That's just business." But Zara shook her head, her silver hair catching the light from the ship systems. "Among my people, there are certain debts that transcend mere business transactions. You have not simply repaired my vessel. You have shown understanding and respect for something that most of the galaxy considers impossible." Before Marcus could respond, an alarm began sounding throughout the station. His security sensors had detected multiple ships approaching at high speed, and their energy signatures were definitely military grade. Marcus rushed to his monitoring station and pulled up the tactical display. "We've got company," he announced grimly. 5 ships, heavy cruiser class, approaching fast and not bothering to transmit identification codes. Zara's expression changed instantly from gratitude to concern. "Show me their configuration." Marcus transferred the sensor data to the ship's displays, and Zara studied them with the practiced eye of a military commander. Her face went pale, which Marcus had learned was a bad sign regardless of species. "Korthak raiders," she said quietly. "They must have been tracking my quantum signature. I led them right to your station." "Korthak?" Marcus had heard rumors about the Korthak collective, but they usually stayed in the unexplored regions beyond the galactic rim. They were supposed to be a militaristic species that conquered other worlds to fuel their expansion. "A species that believes strength is the only virtue worth possessing," Zara explained as she moved toward her ship. "They have been hunting me for 3 standard months, ever since I escaped from one of their prison worlds." Marcus followed her, his mind racing. "Prison worlds? What did you do to end up in a Korthak prison?" "I discovered something they did not want the rest of the galaxy to know about," Zara replied, her hands moving over her ship's control surfaces. "Evidence of their plans to invade the core worlds, including Earth. The tactical display showed the Korthak ships would reach the station in less than 10 minutes. Marcus's small repair station had no weapons and minimal shielding.
Against 5 heavy cruisers, they would last about as long as tissue paper in a blowtorch. Your ship can outrun them now that it's repaired, right? Marcus asked.
Zara nodded.
Easily. But I cannot leave you here to face them alone.
They will torture you for information about me, then destroy your station to eliminate any witnesses.
Marcus considered their options.
He could try to evacuate on one of the smaller ships in his bay, but none of them had the range to reach a safe system before running out of fuel.
His station was isolated precisely because it offered privacy to clients who didn't want questions asked about their business. What if we stayed and fought? Marcus asked.
Your ship must have weapons.
Against 5 heavy cruisers? Zara looked at him as if he had suggested challenging a supernova to a staring contest.
We would be destroyed before we could fire a single shot. But Marcus was thinking about something his grandfather had once told him. Sometimes the best way to win a fight was to change the rules of engagement.
And Zara's ship had capabilities that the Korthak probably didn't know about. What if we didn't fight them directly?
Marcus said slowly.
What if we made them fight each other instead? Zara tilted her head, intrigued despite their desperate situation. Explain.
Marcus pulled up the technical specifications he had studied while repairing her ship.
Your quantum manipulation systems can bend spacetime, right? What if we used that ability to create some kind of trap?
The quantum field generators are designed for propulsion, not combat applications, Zara replied. But Marcus could see her mind working through the possibilities.
Maybe not combat, but what about misdirection?
Marcus was warming to his idea now.
Could you create false quantum signatures? Make it look like there are multiple ships here when there's really only one? Zara's eyes widened as she understood what he was proposing. Quantum echoes.
In theory, yes, but the power requirements would be enormous, and the calculations would need to be perfect. Your ship's bioneural interface could handle the calculations, Marcus said confidently.
She's basically a living computer, right? And my improvised power couplings might actually help by providing more stable energy flow. The Korthak ships were now only 6 minutes away.
If they were going to try Marcus's plan, they needed to act fast.
Zara made her decision. It is insane, but it might work. Can you help me reconfigure the quantum field generators for echo projection?
Marcus was already moving toward the ship's quantum matrix chamber.
Tell me what you need.
Working together, they began rapidly modifying the ship's systems.
Marcus's human engineering background proved surprisingly useful, as he was able to suggest unconventional solutions that Altarian designers would never have considered. We need to create at least 20 false signatures, Zara explained as she reprogrammed the bioneural interface.
Make it appear that a large fleet is hiding in the asteroid field surrounding your station.
20?
Marcus paused in his work.
Why not go bigger? If we're going to bluff, let's make it a bluff worth believing. How big are you thinking? Zara asked with what Marcus was learning to recognize as her expression of amused curiosity. How about 100 ships? Make them think they've stumbled into the middle of a major fleet operation.
Zara stared at him for a moment, then began laughing. It was a beautiful sound that reminded Marcus of wind chimes in a gentle breeze.
You are either brilliant or completely insane, Marcus Chin. Possibly both.
My grandfather always said those two things were pretty much the same, Marcus replied, making the final connections in the quantum matrix. The Korthak ships were now 3 minutes away and had begun active scanning of the station.
Marcus and Zara worked frantically to complete their modifications before being detected. Bioneural interface is ready, Zara announced.
She understands what we need her to do. Marcus felt that warm sensation again as the ship seemed to acknowledge him directly. Good luck, beautiful, he whispered to the ship, then immediately felt embarrassed for talking to what was technically a machine.
But Zara smiled at his words. She appreciates the encouragement.
Many Altarians forget that their ships have feelings.
Quantum echoes activating in 3, 2, 1, now.
The effect was immediate and spectacular. Marcus's sensors suddenly showed over 100 ship signatures scattered throughout the asteroid field. Each signature was perfectly crafted to look like a different class of vessel, from nimble fighters to massive battleships. Incredible, Marcus breathed.
It looks completely real.
Through the station's communication array, they could hear the Korthak fleet's transmissions as their commanders tried to make sense of what they were seeing.
Fleet Command, this is Hunter 7. We have encountered a massive enemy force in Grid 77 Alpha. Repeat, massive enemy force.
Over 100 ships detected.
Hunter 7, confirm your reading.
Intelligence reports indicated a single damaged vessel. Confirmed, Fleet Command.
We are looking at what appears to be a full battle fleet. Recommend immediate withdrawal and reinforcement request.
Marcus and Zara exchanged grins. Their bluff was working perfectly. But then, something went wrong. One of the Korthak ships began moving closer to the station, its sensors probing more aggressively. Marcus watched the tactical display with growing concern. They're going to figure out that the signatures are false, he warned Zara. Their sensors are too good.
Zara's hands flew over her ship's controls.
I can maintain the illusion, but not if they get too close.
We need something to make them keep their distance.
Marcus thought furiously. They needed a way to make the fake fleet seem threatening without actually having any weapons.
Then, inspiration struck. What if one of our fake ships fired at them?
Could you create a quantum distortion that looked like weapons fire?
It would require precise timing and incredible computational power, Zara replied.
But, yes, it might be possible. Marcus was already working on the sensor modifications they would need. Target the ship that's getting too close. Make it look like our biggest fake battleship just locked weapons onto them. The ship's bioneural interface hummed with activity as it calculated the complex quantum manipulations required. Marcus held his breath as they waited to see if their desperate gambit would work. Suddenly, the space around the approaching Korthak cruiser lit up with what appeared to be weapons lock indicators and targeting beams. To their sensors, it would look like a massive battleship had just trained its main guns directly on them. The effect was immediate. The Korthak ship veered away from the station so fast that Marcus was surprised it didn't leave skid marks in space.
Hunter 7 to Fleet Command. We are taking weapons lock from a Sovereign-class battleship. Request immediate support. All hunters, fall back to safe distance immediately. Do not engage until reinforcements arrive.
Marcus watched with satisfaction as the 5 Korthak ships retreated to the edge of the sensor range and took up defensive positions. They were now too far away to detect that the fleet's signatures were false, but close enough to monitor the situation. That was brilliant, Zara said, her voice filled with admiration. I have never seen anyone think so quickly under pressure. But Marcus was already considering their next problem.
This won't hold them forever.
Eventually, they're going to call for backup or figure out what we're doing. Their nearest fleet base is 4 days away at maximum speed, Zara replied. But you are correct.
We need a more permanent solution.
As they discussed their options, Marcus's communication array received an incoming transmission on a secured military channel. The signal was definitely human, but encoded with encryption protocols he didn't recognize.
Unknown station, this is Captain Sarah Rodriguez of the Human Defense Force Cruiser Determination. We have been monitoring Korthak fleet movements in this sector. Do you require assistance?
Marcus and Zara looked at each other in surprise. A human military ship in this remote sector was the last thing either of them had expected. Captain Rodriguez, this is Marcus Chen at Chen's repair station.
I've got a situation here that's pretty complicated to explain.
Mr. Chen, we're detecting over 100 ship signatures in your vicinity, including 5 Korthak heavy cruisers.
Are you under attack? Marcus hesitated.
How exactly did you explain that 95% of the ships showing on sensors didn't actually exist? Zara gestured for him to hand her the communicator.
Captain Rodriguez, this is Commander Zara of the Altarian fleet.
The situation is not quite what your sensors indicate.
Would it be possible for us to speak privately?
There was a long pause on the channel.
Commander Zara, this is highly irregular. How do we know this isn't some kind of Korthak trick?
Because, Zara replied with a slight smile, if this were a Korthak trick, your ship would already be under attack by a 100-ship battle fleet.
Another pause, then, fair point. We'll be in communication range in 30 minutes. Determination out. Marcus turned to Zara with newfound respect.
You know, for someone who was just a prisoner on a Korthak world 3 months ago, you're pretty good at diplomacy. I was not always a prisoner, Zara replied mysteriously. Before my capture, I held a rather different position in the Altarian military hierarchy. Before Marcus could ask what she meant by that, his attention was drawn back to the tactical display. The Korthak ships had begun moving again, but this time they were spreading out into a wider formation. They're setting up a blockade, Marcus realized. They might not want to attack a 100-ship fleet, but they're not going to let anyone leave either. Smart tactics, Zara admitted. They will wait for reinforcements while ensuring that none of their quarry can escape. The next 30 minutes passed slowly as they maintained their quantum echo projections while waiting for the human ship to arrive. Marcus used the time to study the Korthak formation and think about possible escape routes. When Captain Rodriguez's ship finally dropped out of hyperspace, Marcus was impressed despite their dangerous situation. The Determination was one of the newer human cruisers, sleek and powerful, with enough firepower to give even the Korthak pause. Mr. Chen, Commander Zara, this is Captain Rodriguez. I'm reading 5 genuine Korthak signatures and approximately 95 false ones. That's quite an impressive light show you've created. Marcus grinned. Thanks, Captain. I take it human sensors are a bit more sophisticated than Korthak ones? Different technologies, different strengths, Rodriguez replied. Now, someone want to explain to me why you're running a quantum shell game with a Korthak raider fleet? Zara took the lead in explaining the situation to Captain Rodriguez. Captain, I am carrying intelligence data about Korthak invasion plans targeting the core worlds, including Earth. They have been pursuing me for months to prevent this information from reaching the proper authorities. Invasion plans? Rodriguez's voice became noticeably more serious. Commander, I'm going to need you to be very specific about what kind of intelligence you're carrying. Troop movements, staging area locations, and timetables for a coordinated attack on 12 major human colonies, Zara replied. The Korthak have been building forces for this operation for over 2 years. There was silence on the communication channel for several long moments. Marcus could imagine the captain processing this information and considering its implications. Commander Zara, this intelligence needs to reach Earth Command immediately. However, we have the small problem of 5 Korthak heavy cruisers who seem determined to prevent that from happening. Actually, Captain, Marcus interjected, I think our quantum echo trick might have given us an opportunity. The Korthak are waiting for reinforcements, which means they're not expecting us to make any aggressive moves. What are you suggesting, Mr. Chen? Marcus pulled up the tactical display and began highlighting key positions. Your ship plus Zara's ship gives us 2 genuine vessels with real firepower. What if we used the fake fleet signatures to coordinate a surprise attack? Captain Rodriguez sounded skeptical. Mr. Chen, I appreciate creative thinking, but 5 heavy cruisers are still 5 heavy cruisers, regardless of how many false signatures we can generate. But Zara was studying Marcus's proposed attack pattern with growing interest. Captain, what if we could coordinate our attack to make it appear that multiple ships were firing simultaneously? The Korthak would have no way to distinguish between real weapons fire and quantum-generated false signatures. You could do that? Rodriguez asked. With Marcus's help, yes, Zara replied confidently. His understanding of quantum manipulation principles is quite remarkable for someone with no formal training in the field. Marcus felt a warm glow of pride at Zara's compliment. The basic principle is the same as what we've been doing with the false ship signatures. We just need to scale it up and coordinate it with your actual weapons fire. Over the next 20 minutes, they worked out the details of their attack plan. Captain Rodriguez would target 2 of the Korthak ships with her real weapons while Zara's ship created the appearance of multiple additional vessels firing on the other 3 cruisers. The timing would be critical. If the Korthak realized they were facing only 2 real ships instead of the massive fleet they believed they were fighting, the deception would collapse and they would find themselves hopelessly outgunned. Mr. Chen, Captain Rodriguez said as they finalized their preparations, I have to ask. How did a repair shop mechanic become an expert in quantum field manipulation? Marcus laughed. Honestly, Captain, I have no idea. 3 days ago, I'd never even seen an Altarian ship. But Zara's vessel has been teaching me as we worked together. Teaching you? Rodriguez sounded confused. The ship is binaural, Zara explained. She has a form of consciousness and can communicate directly with individuals she trusts. It is quite rare for her to accept a non-Altarian so readily. Through the ship's bioneural interface, Marcus felt a warm pulse of affection from the vessel. It was like being smiled at by a friend, except the friend was a starship with the processing power of a small moon. Right, Rodriguez said after a pause. I'm not sure I understand all the technical details, but I trust your assessment, Commander. Are we ready to proceed? Marcus made the final adjustments to the quantum field generators while Zara programmed the attack patterns into the bioneural interface. The ship hummed with anticipation, and Marcus realized she was actually looking forward to the coming battle. All systems ready, Zara announced. The quantum echoes will synchronize with Captain Rodriguez's weapons fire automatically. Determination ready, Rodriguez confirmed. Beginning approach in 3, 2, 1, mark. The human cruiser began accelerating toward the Korthak formation while Zara's ship maneuvered into position. On Marcus's sensors, it appeared as if an entire battle fleet was moving to attack the enemy vessels. The Korthak response was immediate and panicked. They had been expecting to wait safely for reinforcements, not suddenly find themselves under attack by overwhelming numbers. All hunters, battle stations. We are under attack by the enemy fleet. Repeat, we are under attack. Captain Rodriguez's first salvo caught the nearest Korthak cruiser completely by surprise. The ship's shields flared and failed under the concentrated fire from what appeared to be multiple human battleships. Simultaneously, Zara's quantum projections created the illusion of dozens of energy beams and missile launches targeting the other 4 Korthak vessels. The fake weapons fire looked completely real on their sensors and even produced convincing light shows as the quantum fields interacted with the ship's shields. Hunter 3 taking heavy damage. We need immediate support. Hunter 5 reports engine failure. Multiple torpedo impacts. Fleet Command, this is Hunter 7. We are under attack by a massive allied fleet. Request immediate evacuation support. Marcus watched with amazement as the Korthak formation began to break apart. Ships that thought they were taking heavy damage started emergency evasive maneuvers, while others tried to concentrate their fire on targets that didn't actually exist. The confusion in the enemy fleet was exactly what Rodriguez needed. The determination moved through the chaotic battlefield like a predator among sheep, picking off damaged Korthak ships one by one while they were distracted by phantom attackers. Hunter 3 destroyed. Hunter 5 is venting atmosphere. We cannot maintain this position. Within 10 minutes, 3 of the 5 Korthak cruisers had been destroyed or disabled. The remaining 2 ships were desperately trying to escape the battle zone while transmitting frantic requests for support. This is Hunter 7. We are withdrawing from engagement. Enemy strength far exceeds intelligence estimates. Captain Rodriguez allowed the surviving Korthak ships to flee rather than pursuing them. As the enemy vessels jumped to hyperspace, she opened a communication channel to Marcus and Zara. Outstanding work, both of you. I've never seen a more effective use of misdirection in combat. Marcus slumped in his chair, suddenly exhausted from the stress of the past few hours. Is it over? For now, Zara replied. But the surviving ships will report what happened here, and the Korthak will eventually figure out what we did. Which is why we need to get that intelligence data to Earth Command as quickly as possible, Rodriguez added. Commander Zara, I'm prepared to escort you to the nearest major human base. That would be most appreciated, Captain. However, I have a request to make first. Rodriguez sounded curious. What kind of request? Zara looked at Marcus with an expression he couldn't quite interpret. I would like Marcus Chen to accompany us to Earth. Marcus nearly fell out of his chair. What? Why would you want me to go to Earth? I'm just a mechanic. You are considerably more than just a mechanic, Zara replied firmly. Your intuitive understanding of quantum mechanics and bioneural technology is unprecedented. The Altarian Science Council would be very interested in meeting you. The Altarian Science Council? Marcus had heard of them. They were supposed to be some of the most advanced minds in known space. Moreover, Zara continued, your ship has requested that you accompany her. My ship? Marcus looked around in confusion. Zara smiled. She has become quite attached to you, Marcus. Bioneural vessels choose their own crew members, and she has chosen you. Marcus felt that warm sensation again, stronger than before. The ship was definitely trying to tell him something, and what she was saying felt like an invitation.
Captain Rodriguez's voice broke into his thoughts.
Mr. Chan, I realize this is a lot to process, but I have to say that what you accomplished here today was remarkable.
The Defense Force could use people with your kind of innovative thinking. But what about my repair station? Marcus protested. I've got customers depending on me.
Your station will be here when you return, Zara said gently. But the opportunity to work with Altarian technology and represent your species in our ongoing alliance negotiations may not come again. Marcus considered the offer carefully. His entire life had been spent in this remote corner of space, fixing ships and living quietly. The idea of traveling to Earth and working with alien technology was both thrilling and terrifying.
What exactly would I be doing? He asked.
Initially, you would work with our joint technology teams to develop better integration between human and Altarian systems, Zara explained.
Your natural ability to communicate with bioneural interfaces could revolutionize how our species cooperate.
And, Captain Rodriguez added, the Defense Force is very interested in the quantum echo techniques you developed today. That kind of tactical innovation could give us a significant advantage against hostile forces. Marcus looked around his modest repair station one more time. It had been his home for 15 years, and leaving it felt like abandoning everything he had built. But then, he felt the ship's presence in his mind again, warm and encouraging. She wanted to explore the galaxy with him, to show him wonders beyond imagination and learn from his unique perspective on technology and life.
How long would this assignment last? Marcus asked.
That would depend on you, Zara replied. The initial technology exchange program is scheduled for 6 months, but there would be opportunities for longer-term positions if you were interested. Marcus made his decision.
All right, I'll do it.
But I want to make arrangements for someone to look after the station while I'm gone.
Of course, Rodriguez said.
We'll make sure your business is properly cared for during your absence. As Marcus began gathering the personal items he would need for the journey, Zara approached him with something that looked like a small crystal pendant.
What's this?
Marcus asked as she placed it in his hands.
A bioneural interface crystal, Zara explained.
It will allow you to communicate directly with any Altarian vessel, not just mine. Consider it a token of appreciation for everything you have done. Marcus felt the crystal pulse with warm energy as soon as it touched his skin. When he put the chain around his neck, the sensation of connection with Zara's ship became even stronger and clearer. Thank you, Marcus said, though the words felt inadequate for such an extraordinary gift.
It is I who should be thanking you, Zara replied.
You have not only saved my life and mission, but you have shown that the barriers between our species are not as great as many believe. Over the next hour, Marcus sealed his station's systems and arranged for a neighboring facility to monitor his equipment. Captain Rodriguez coordinated with Earth Command to clear Marcus for travel to the core worlds. As they prepared to depart, Marcus took one last look around his workshop. Every tool had its place, every spare part was carefully catalogued, and every repair manual was neatly filed. It was the work of a lifetime, and he was walking away from it to chase an impossible dream. But, when he boarded Zara's ship for the journey to rendezvous with the determination, Marcus felt a sense of rightness that convinced him he was making the right choice. The ship welcomed him aboard like an old friend, and he could feel her excitement about the adventures ahead.
Ready to see the galaxy, beautiful?
Marcus whispered to the ship as they prepared for departure. The bioneural interface pulsed with what could only be described as enthusiasm, and Marcus found himself laughing with pure joy. As Zara's ship lifted off from the station's docking bay, Marcus watched his home grow smaller through the viewports. But, instead of sadness, he felt only anticipation for whatever lay ahead. The ship's bioneural interface projected a star map showing their route to Earth, with dozens of fascinating stops along the way. Marcus realized that his journey was just beginning, and that the galaxy was far more wonderful and strange than he had ever imagined. Marcus, Zara said as they entered hyperspace, there is something else I should tell you about your destination.
What's that?
Zara smiled mysteriously. The Altarian Science Council has been looking for someone with your particular abilities for quite some time. Your arrival will cause quite a stir in certain circles.
My abilities?
Marcus was still getting used to the idea that he had any special abilities at all.
The capacity to form a genuine neural bond with biotechnology, Zara explained. It is extraordinarily rare, even among Altarians.
Most individuals can learn to work with bioneural interfaces, but you seem to have developed a true partnership with them. Marcus felt the ship's agreement with Zara's assessment, along with what seemed like pride in their growing relationship.
What does that mean for me practically? Marcus asked.
It means, Zara replied with a grin, that your life is about to become very interesting indeed. As they traveled through hyperspace toward their rendezvous with Captain Rodriguez, Marcus began to understand that his simple act of repairing a damaged ship had set in motion events that would change not only his own life, but potentially the relationship between humans and Altarians forever. The ship hummed contentedly around him, and Marcus settled back to enjoy the ride. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew he wouldn't be facing them alone. He had found not just a new career, but a new partner who understood him in ways he was only beginning to appreciate. The quantum echo techniques that had started as a desperate gambit were already being refined and improved by the ship's bioneural interface. Marcus realized that their collaboration was producing innovations that neither human nor Altarian technology could achieve alone.
Zara, Marcus said thoughtfully, I think this partnership between our species is going to be even more important than either of us realized.
I believe you are correct, Marcus Chen, Zara replied. And I suspect that you will play a central role in making it successful. Marcus looked out at the stars streaming past the ship and felt a sense of destiny settling over him like a comfortable cloak. His grandfather had always said that sometimes life takes you in directions you never expected, and that the secret was to embrace the journey rather than fighting against it. As they approached the coordinates for their meeting with the Determination, Marcus began to see that his real adventure was just beginning.
The journey to Earth took 3 weeks aboard the Determination, with Zara's ship traveling in formation alongside the human cruiser.
During that time, Marcus found himself living in 2 worlds simultaneously. By day, he worked with Captain Rodriguez's engineering teams, sharing the quantum echo techniques and helping them understand the principles behind bioneural technology. The human engineers were fascinated by his ability to interface directly with Altarian systems, and they quickly began developing new hybrid technologies that combined human and Altarian approaches. By night, Marcus spent time aboard Zara's ship, deepening his understanding of bioneural interfaces and learning about Altarian culture and history. The ship herself became his most patient teacher, guiding him through complex quantum mechanics concepts and helping him develop his natural talents.
Your progress is remarkable, Zara told him one evening as they reviewed his latest achievements.
Most Altarians require years of training to reach your current level of bioneural integration. Marcus touched the interface crystal at his throat, feeling the warm pulse of connection it provided.
I think your ship is just a really good teacher.
She seems to know exactly how to explain things so I can understand them.
That is another unusual aspect of your partnership, Zara observed.
Bioneural vessels typically adapt their communication style to match their crew's learning patterns, but the speed and depth of her adaptation to you is unprecedented. Through the ship's systems, Marcus felt what could only be described as affection and pride. The vessel was genuinely happy with their growing partnership, and Marcus found that her emotions were becoming easier for him to interpret. Captain Rodriguez joined them for dinner that night, as had become their custom during the voyage.
Mr. Chen, I've been reviewing the reports from my engineering teams.
The modifications you've helped them develop have improved our sensor efficiency by 30% and our defensive capabilities by 20%.
Just call me Marcus, Captain, he replied.
And really, most of those improvements came from combining techniques that both our species already knew.
I just helped translate between the different approaches.
That's exactly the kind of thinking that makes you valuable, Rodriguez said.
The ability to see connections between different technological paradigms isn't common, even among our best engineers.
As they approached Earth's solar system, Marcus began to understand the scope of what he had gotten himself into. The intelligence data that Zara carried had triggered a massive response from both human and Altarian military forces. Ships from both species were converging on Earth for emergency strategy sessions. The Korthak invasion fleet is larger than anyone anticipated, Zara explained as they reviewed the latest intelligence reports. Over 2,000 ships, supported by ground forces numbering in the millions.
Marcus whistled softly. That's enough to overwhelm most planetary defenses.
Indeed, Rodriguez agreed grimly. Which is why the alliance between our species has become so critical. Neither humans nor Altarians could face this threat alone. When they finally reached Earth orbit, Marcus was amazed by the sight of the combined fleet assembling around humanity's homeworld. Human and Altarian vessels worked side by side, their crews sharing information and coordinating strategies that would have been impossible just months earlier. The Altarian ships were even more beautiful in large numbers, their organic curves and flowing lines creating patterns that seemed almost like a dance among the stars. Marcus felt Zara's ship responding to the presence of her sister vessels, and he realized she was communicating with them in ways he was only beginning to understand. Marcus, Zara said as they prepared to transfer to the surface, there is something I have not told you about my true identity. Marcus looked at her curiously. What do you mean? I am not simply a commander in the Altarian fleet, Zara said with a slight smile. I am the daughter of the High Admiral and the designated liaison for human-Altarian cooperation initiatives. Marcus blinked in surprise. Your royalty? Not exactly, but my family does hold significant influence in Altarian society, Zara replied. I apologize for not mentioning this earlier, but I wanted you to know me as myself, not as my family's reputation. That actually explains a lot, Marcus said thoughtfully. Your diplomatic skills, your access to advanced technology, and the way other Altarians defer to you. Are you angry that I did not tell you sooner? Zara asked with concern. Marcus considered the question seriously. No, I'm not angry. If anything, it makes me respect you more. You could have pulled rank at any time, but you chose to work as part of a team instead. Zara's relief was obvious. Your reaction is one of the reasons why my father is eager to meet you. Your father wants to meet me? Marcus felt a sudden case of nerves. The High Admiral has been following reports of your work with great interest, Zara explained. The possibility of true human-Altarian bioneural integration has implications far beyond simple technological cooperation. The shuttle trip down to Earth's surface gave Marcus time to process this new information. He had gone from being an unknown repair shop owner to someone that alien royalty wanted to meet, all in the span of a few weeks. Earth's capital city was a sprawling metropolis that housed the headquarters of both the Human Defense Force and the newly established Human-Altarian Alliance. The buildings were a fascinating mix of human architectural styles and Altarian bioarchitectural elements that seemed to grow from the Earth itself. Marcus was assigned quarters in the Alliance headquarters, where he would be working with joint technology teams for the foreseeable future. His rooms were comfortable but modest, with a beautiful view of the gardens where human and Altarian plants grew side by side. That evening, Zara took him to meet her father. High Admiral Caliph was an imposing figure who radiated authority and wisdom, but Marcus was surprised by the warmth in his greeting. Marcus Chen, the High Admiral said in perfect English, my daughter has told me remarkable things about your abilities and character. Thank you, sir, Marcus replied, feeling somewhat overwhelmed by meeting one of the most powerful figures in known space. I understand that you have formed a genuine bond with one of our bioneural vessels, Caliph continued. This is a development of enormous significance for our two species. Marcus touched his interface crystal unconsciously. I'm still learning to understand what that means, sir. It means, Caliph said with a smile, that you represent the future of human-Altarian cooperation. Few beings of any species can achieve true bioneural integration, and fewer still can do so across species lines. Over the course of their conversation, Marcus began to understand the broader implications of his unusual abilities. The bioneural interface technology was central to Altarian civilization, powering everything from their ships to their cities to their planetary defense systems. If humans can learn to work with bioneural technology, Caliph explained, it opens the possibility of cooperation on a scale never before imagined. Joint exploration missions, shared defensive systems, even collaborative scientific research projects that could benefit both species enormously. But, I'm just one person, Marcus protested. Even if I can work with your technology, that doesn't mean other humans can learn to do the same thing. Perhaps not, Caliph agreed. But, you could teach them. Share your insights and help develop training programs that would allow other humans to develop similar abilities. As if to emphasize the point, Marcus felt Zara's ship reaching out to him across the distance between the surface and orbit. Even separated by hundreds of kilometers, their bioneural connection remained strong and clear. She misses you, Zara said with amusement, apparently sensing the same connection. I miss her too, Marcus admitted. It's strange how quickly she became important to me. Caliph nodded approvingly. That is the mark of a true bioneural bond. The partnership becomes as natural as breathing and as essential as heartbeat.
The next morning, Marcus began his new position as the first human bioneural integration specialist.
His job was to work with teams of scientists and engineers from both species, developing methods for humans to interface with Altarian technology and vice versa.
The work was challenging but fascinating.
Each day brought new discoveries and insights as they explored the possibilities of true technological integration. Marcus found that his intuitive understanding of bioneural systems made him an excellent bridge between the two very different approaches to technology.
Human engineers tended to think in terms of mechanical systems and logical processes, while Altarians viewed technology as a living system that required emotional and intuitive understanding.
Marcus's ability to work with both approaches made him invaluable as a translator and mediator. The key insight, Marcus explained to a joint research team, is that bioneural systems aren't just computers that happen to be made of organic components. They're actually a form of artificial life that has its own needs, preferences, and personality. But, how do we quantify personality in a technological system? Asked Dr. Sarah Kim, one of the human researchers.
You don't quantify it, Marcus replied. You learn to recognize it and work with it. Each bioneural interface is unique, just like each person is unique.
As an example, Marcus demonstrated his connection with Zara's ship, which was still in orbit above them. Through his interface crystal, he was able to access the ship's sensors and show the research team real-time images of Earth from space. Remarkable, breathed Dr. Veltar, the lead Altarian researcher.
The clarity and speed of your connection is extraordinary, even by our standards.
Over the weeks that followed, Marcus worked with volunteers from both species to develop training programs for bioneural integration. Not everyone could achieve the level of connection that came naturally to him, but many showed significant progress in learning to work with the living technology. The breakthrough came when Marcus suggested using meditation techniques combined with empathy training to help people open their minds to bioneural communication. By treating the interfaces as partners rather than tools, humans began to achieve levels of integration that surprised everyone. You've revolutionized our understanding of cross-species technological cooperation, Dr. Kim told Marcus after a particularly successful training session. I don't know about revolutionized, Marcus replied modestly. I just listened to what the ships were trying to tell me. But Marcus was beginning to understand that his role in the alliance was becoming more significant than anyone had initially anticipated. The bioneural integration techniques he was developing were being implemented across the combined fleet, making human and Altarian ships more effective when working together.
The timing couldn't have been better.
Intelligence reports indicated that the Korthak invasion fleet was moving ahead of schedule, and the combined forces would need every advantage they could get.
Marcus, Zara told him one evening as they walked through the Alliance Gardens, I have news about our next assignment. Assignment?
The Alliance Council has approved a new mission, she explained. A joint deep space reconnaissance to gather intelligence on Korthak movements and capabilities. Marcus felt a thrill of excitement mixed with apprehension.
You mean we're going back out there?
We are, Zara confirmed. And, this time, we'll be leading a mixed squadron of human and Altarian vessels, all equipped with the bioneural integration systems you've developed. Marcus looked up at the stars, knowing that somewhere up there, Zara's ship was waiting for him. The thought of returning to space, of working with bioneural technology on a larger scale, filled him with anticipation.
When do we leave? He asked.
3 days, Zara replied with a smile.
Are you ready for your next adventure, Marcus-Chen?
Marcus touched his interface crystal and felt the warm pulse of connection with ships throughout the fleet. Each one was unique, with its own personality and capabilities, but all of them were eager to work with him. I'm ready, he said confidently.
Let's go see what's out there.
As they stood in the garden under the alien stars, Marcus realized that his simple act of fixing a broken ship had led to something far greater than he could have imagined. He had found his calling, his purpose, and his place in the galaxy. The universe was vast and full of wonders, and Marcus Chen, former repair shop mechanic, was ready to explore it all with his bioneural partners at his side.